She was born to rule an empire. She gave up a throne for freedom. She scandalized Europe by refusing marriage, converting to Catholicism, and living as no woman had dared before. But in her final days, alone in a Roman palace filled with art and memories, Queen Christina of Sweden would face the most honest question of all. Was it worth it? The woman who had everything died with nothing but the ghost of a love she could never fully claim. Before we dive into this heartbreaking story, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below telling us, would you give up everything for love and freedom? Let's begin.
Rome, April 1689, Palazzo Corsini. The room smelled of old parchment, oil paint, and something else, something heavier. Regret, perhaps, or just the scent of a life lived too boldly, burning out like a candle in its final flicker. Christina sat by the window, wrapped in a velvet robe that had once been crimson, but now looked faded like everything else in her life. She was 62 years old, but her eyes, those sharp, defiant eyes that had once stared down kings and popes, still held fire. Outside, Rome buzzed with life. Merchants shouted, children laughed, lovers whispered in shadowed alleys. But inside this palace, silence reigned. The queen who had once commanded the loyalty of an entire nation now sat alone, surrounded by thousands of books, paintings, and sculptures she had collected over decades. "Your Majesty, you should rest," said her servant Sentinelli, a man who had stayed with her through scandal, exile, and ruin. He was one of the few who still called her Majesty. Most of Europe had forgotten she was ever a queen at all. Christina waved him away. "Rest! I've been resting my whole life, Sentinelli. What I need now is something else." She reached for a small wooden box on the table beside her. Her hands trembled slightly, not from age, but from emotion. Inside the box was a single letter, yellowed with time, the ink faded but still legible. She didn't need to read it. She had memorized every word decades ago. "Christina, you are the bravest soul I have ever known. But bravery and happiness are not always the same thing. I hope, wherever you are, that you have found peace." It was signed simply, E. Ebba Sparre. The name sent a shiver through Christina's body, even now, after all these years. Ebba, the only person who had ever truly seen her, not as a queen, not as a scandal, not as a curiosity, but as a woman with dreams, fears, and a heart that beat too wildly for the cage the world had built around her. "Christina, Sentinelli," Christina whispered, her voice hoarse, "do you believe in fate?" He paused, unsure how to answer. I suppose I do, Your Majesty." "Then fate is a cruel mistress," she laughed bitterly. "I was born to be king. My father wanted a son, you know. When I came out a girl, he raised me as if I were a boy anyway. I learned Latin, philosophy, military strategy. I rode horses, I hunted, I debated scholars twice my age. I was groomed to rule Sweden as a king would rule." She stood slowly, walking to a large portrait that hung on the wall. It showed her at 23, crowned and regal, her expression cold and commanding. That was the Christina the world remembered, the warrior queen, the intellectual, the rebel. But the woman standing before that portrait now looked nothing like the girl in the painting. "I ruled for 10 years, she continued, almost talking to herself. 10 years of council meetings, political games, marriages proposed and rejected. Everyone wanted me to marry, to produce an heir, to be a proper queen. Her jaw tightened. But I couldn't. I wouldn't, because I knew the truth about myself, Santinelli. I knew it even then. Santinelli said nothing. He had heard pieces of this story before, but never like this. Never with such raw honesty. I didn't want a husband, Christina said quietly. I wanted freedom. I wanted to love who I wanted to love. And the person I loved was not a man. The room seemed to hold its breath. Ebba Sparre, Christina whispered, as if saying the name aloud might summon her ghost. Ebba, the only person who had ever truly seen her, not as a queen, not as a scandal, not as a curiosity, but as a woman with dreams, fears, and a heart that beat too wildly for the cage the world had built around her. But the world doesn't forgive women like me, Christina said, her voice breaking. So I made a choice. I abdicated the throne. I gave up everything, my crown, my country, my power, and I left. I thought if I left, I could finally be free. She opened her eyes, and they were filled with unshed tears. But Ebba didn't come with me. Santinelli's heart ached for her. Why not, Your Majesty? Christina's laugh was bitter, because she was braver than I ever was. She knew the truth, that freedom without love is just another kind of prison. She stayed in Sweden. She married a count. She lived the life that was expected of her. And I wandered Europe like a ghost. I converted to Catholicism to spite my Protestant homeland. I scandalized the Pope himself with my behavior. I tried to claim thrones in Naples and Poland and failed. I collected art, hosted salons, debated with the greatest minds of the age. I paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. But none of it filled the emptiness she left behind. Santinelli stepped closer. Your Majesty, you lived a life most people could never dream of. You were free. Christina turned to him, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Was I, Santinelli? Was I really? And before he could answer, she collapsed back into her chair, clutching the letter to her chest, as the weight of 62 years of loneliness crashed down upon her. What choices had led her here? And in her final days, would Christina finally find the peace that had eluded her for so long?
Stockholm, 1654, 35 years earlier. The day Christina abdicated, the sky wept. Rain poured over the palace as she stood before the Swedish Parliament, her voice steady, her face a mask of calm. But inside, her heart was shattering. I, Christina, by the grace of God, Queen of Sweden, do hereby renounce my throne and all claims to the crown. May my cousin, Charles Gustaf, rule with wisdom and strength. I go now to seek a life of my own choosing. The room erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted. Advisors begged her to reconsider. But Christina had already made her decision. She removed the crown from her head and placed it on a velvet cushion, as if it weighed nothing at all. But it wasn't the crown she was leaving behind. It was Ebba. Later that night, in her private chambers, Christina sat before the fire, staring into the flames. The door opened quietly, and Ebba Sparre entered, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. "You're really leaving," Ebba said, her voice barely above a whisper. Christina didn't look at her. I have to. No, you don't. Ebba's voice cracked. You could stay. We could what, Ebba? Christina finally turned to face her, and the anguish in her eyes was unbearable. Live a lie? Pretend that I'm something I'm not? Marry some prince and produce heirs while you stand beside me as my lady-in-waiting, watching me slowly die inside? Ebba stepped closer, tears streaming down her face. Then take me with you. Christina's breath caught. You don't mean that. I do, Ebba said, reaching out, taking Christina's hands in hers. You will follow me to the ends of the earth. You know I would. For a moment, Christina allowed herself to imagine it. The two of them free, traveling the world together, no titles, no expectations, just them. But then, reality crashed back in. They would destroy us, Christina said quietly. The church, the nobility, the people, they would hunt us down. They would call us witches, sinners, abominations. And they would be right, according to their laws. I don't care about their laws, Ebba said fiercely. But I do. Christina pulled her hands away. Because I've seen what happens to women like us, Ebba. I've heard the stories, the burnings, the exiles, the madness they inflict on those who dare to be different. She stood, turning away so Ebba wouldn't see her tears. I'm leaving to protect you. If you come with me, they'll destroy you too, and I can't let that happen. Ebba's voice was broken. So you're just going to leave me here? Alone? You'll be safer here. You'll marry someone kind. You'll have children. You'll have a life. A life without you, Ebba whispered. Christina closed her eyes, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. Yes, a life without me. Ebba stood there for a long moment, trembling with grief and rage. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out of the room. Christina never saw her again. Rome, 1689, present day. I received one letter from her, Christina told Santinelli, her voice hollow. Just one, 5 years after I left. She told me she had married, that she was content. Content, Santinelli repeated softly. Content. Christina laughed bitterly. What a terrible word. It means you've given up on happiness and settled for mere existence. She stood, pacing the room like a caged animal. I tried to forget her, Santinelli. God knows I tried. I threw myself into my new life. I traveled to France, to Italy, to Spain. I met artists, philosophers, musicians. I had affairs. She paused, her expression darkening. Men, mostly. A few women, when I could find them. But none of them were her. None of them understood me the way she did. Santinelli hesitated, then asked gently, Do you regret it, Your Majesty? Leaving Sweden? Christina was silent for a long moment. I regret that I couldn't have both, the freedom and the love. But the world doesn't work that way, does it? Especially not for women like me. She sank back into her chair, exhausted. I'm dying, Santinelli. I can feel it. My body is failing me. Your Majesty, you mustn't. It's the truth. She smiled sadly. And I'm not afraid of death. What I'm afraid of is dying with this question still burning in my heart. Did she ever truly love me? Or was I just a scandalous secret she was relieved to be rid of? Santinelli's throat tightened. He had no answer to give her. But fate, cruel as it was, had one final surprise in store for Christina. A letter was coming, and it would change everything.
3 days later, a messenger arrived at Palazzo Corsini. Christina was in bed, too weak to rise, her breathing shallow. Santinelli sat beside her, reading aloud from one of her favorite philosophy books, when the knock came at the door. "A letter, Your Majesty," the messenger said, bowing deeply. "From Sweden." Christina's heart stopped. Sweden, after all these years, a letter from Sweden. With trembling hands, she took the envelope. The seal was unfamiliar, but the handwriting on the front made her gasp. It was Ebba's. "Leave me," Christina whispered hoarsely. "All of you, now." Santinelli hesitated, but obeyed. The door closed softly, and Christina was alone. She stared at the letter for what felt like an eternity, afraid to open it. What if it was filled with anger, resentment? What if Ebba had hated her all these years? But she had to know. With shaking hands, she broke the seal and unfolded the pages. "My dearest Christina, if you are reading this, then I am already gone. I died 3 weeks ago, on a cold winter morning, much like the mornings we used to share by the fire in Stockholm." Christina's breath caught, tears streaming down her face. "I asked my daughter to send this letter to you after my death. I could never send it while I was alive. Too much time had passed, too many wounds left unhealed. But in death, I find the courage I lacked in life. Christina, you were wrong about so many things. You were wrong to think that leaving me was protection. You were wrong to think I could ever be content without you. And you were wrong to think I didn't understand why you left. I knew, even then, that the world would never let us be together. I knew that your love for me was both your greatest strength and your greatest curse. And I knew that you left not because you didn't love me, but because you loved me too much to let me be destroyed. But here is what you didn't know. I loved you just as fiercely. Every day of my life I thought of you. When I married, I closed my eyes and imagined it was you beside me. When I held my children, I wondered what ours might have looked like. When I grew old, I prayed that somehow, in some other life, we might find each other again. You asked me once if I believed in fate. I told you I didn't, but I lied. I believe that fate brought us together, even if only for a brief, beautiful moment. And I believe that love, true love, never dies. It lives on, even when we cannot. Christina, you were the bravest woman I ever knew. You gave up a kingdom for freedom. You lived a life that no one else dared to live. And though we were separated by duty and fear, you were always, always the love of my life. Do not die alone, my darling. Know that I am with you, as I have always been. In every breath, in every heartbeat, in every memory we shared. Forever yours, Ebba. Christina collapsed back against the pillows, sobbing uncontrollably. The letter fell from her hands, fluttering to the floor. She had spent 35 years believing that Ebba had moved on, that she had been forgotten. But now in her final days, she knew the truth. Ebba had loved her. Always. "Santinelli," she called weakly. He rushed back into the room, alarmed by her tears. "Your Majesty, what is it?" Christina smiled through her tears, a real smile, the first in years. "She loved me," she whispered. "All this time, she loved me." Santinelli's own eyes filled with tears. "Of course she did, Your Majesty. How could she not?" Christina reached out, gripping his hand tightly. "I'm ready now," she said softly. "I'm ready to go.
But Christina had one final act to perform, a gift to the world and a message to all those who would come after her.
April 19th, 1689. Christina's final day. The morning light filtered through the curtains of Palazzo Corsini, casting soft shadows across Christina's face. She lay in bed, her breathing labored, but her expression peaceful. Santinelli sat beside her, along with a priest and a handful of her closest servants. They knew the end was near. "Santinelli," Christina whispered, her voice barely audible, "bring me my will." He hesitated, then retrieved the document from her desk. Christina had written it weeks ago, but now she wanted to add something. With trembling hands, she took a quill and ink and slowly, painstakingly, added a final clause. "I leave my entire collection of art, books, and manuscripts to the people of Rome, to be housed in a public library where all, regardless of rank, gender, or creed, may access knowledge freely. For I have learned that true power lies not in crowns or kingdoms, but in the freedom to think, to love, and to be oneself." She paused, then added one more line. "And to Ebba Sparre, though she has gone before me, I loved you, I will always love you. May we meet again in a place where love is not a crime." She set down the quill, exhausted, and closed her eyes. "Your Majesty," the priest said gently, "is there anything else you wish to confess?" Christina smiled faintly. "Confess? I have lived my entire life as a confession, Father. I regret nothing." The priest looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Santinelli leaned closer, tears streaming down his face. "Your Majesty, you have lived a life unlike any other. The world will remember you." Christina opened her eyes one last time, and they were clear and bright, as if she could see something beyond this world. "I don't care if the world remembers me, as long as she did." And with that, Queen Christina of Sweden, the woman who gave up a throne for freedom, who loved boldly and lived unapologetically, took her final breath. The legacy. Christina's death sent shockwaves through Europe. Some called her a heretic, others called her a genius. But everyone agreed on one thing: she had lived life on her own terms. Her art collection became the foundation of one of Rome's greatest libraries. Her writings on philosophy, religion, and politics influenced generations of thinkers. But perhaps her greatest legacy was this: she proved that a woman could rule herself, that love, even when hidden, even when impossible, is still love, and that freedom, true freedom, is worth any price. In Sweden, when Ebba Sparre's daughter heard of Christina's death, she wept. She had never understood her mother's deep sadness, her distant gaze, her refusal to speak of the past. But now, holding Ebba's letter in her hands, she finally understood. And she made sure that both women, Christina and Ebba, were remembered not as queen and lady-in-waiting, but as two souls who loved each other against all odds across time and distance until death and beyond. So, what do you think? Would you have made the same choice Christina did? Would you give up everything for freedom, even if it meant losing the person you loved most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because love, real, true, unstoppable love, deserves to be remembered. See you in the next story.